Hello and welcome back. I thought it was about time that I gave you an update on my decluttering project. And that is my project where all of the money that most of the money that I make from decluttering all the junk in my house goes towards paying off my mortgage. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'll pop a card up here somewhere where you can click on that and you can go and watch the first video in this series. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, I have to say. I thought I'd start by talking about how sales have gone from the decluttering. And if I told you that the moment the video came out saying that I was going to do this, the sales just dried up. Would you believe me? I mean, of course it did. Of course, the moment I decided that I was actually going to do something really constructive with this money that was coming in. And I think at the time that I made that last video, I think the amount of money stood at around, I don't know, was it about 750, nearly £800, something along those lines. So it was this big chunk of money that I'd earned that I'd made over the last 3 months that had just come from selling, junk in my house. And suddenly it just stopped almost overnight. And I think what had happened was that probably the best things that I was selling, the better quality items, the branded items, I think they had pretty much sold, and what I was left with were the dregs, or were items that are kind of I'm thinking of things like unusual and rare books, things that are probably going to sit there potentially for a year before the right buyer comes along. So I think that was what I was left with, and that's why the sales started to really slow down. Something else that also happened that I think I referred to in the first video is that there are some things that I'm selling that we have earmarked the money from them for, and I think most of those have sold. I think there's one thing left to sell, and that money is earmarked for something else. So that isn't going to be paid off the mortgage. It's going to pay for something else that we want to spend that money on. So there were some sales, but they weren't connected to this project. But it's still fantastic that they've sold, and it's still fantastic that we've got the money for this other thing that we wanted that money for. So overall, it's still been a positive experience. So what I did a couple of weeks ago is I went through all of the listings that I've got on eBay. I'm predominantly using eBay at the moment because I'm also a reseller on eBay as my business. I find listing on there just really quick and straightforward, and I understand how it works. And I know I said this before, I know people are going to be yelling vinted into my ear, but I list these things on eBay as I'm doing my business listings, and the flow is great, and it hasn't interfered with any of my time really that I could be spending on other things. So in that respect, I'm sticking with eBay for now. I think there were about 40-ish listings that were still on there, and my aim is to try and keep the number of listings on there around 50, and then as things sell, sort of top it up. What I ended up doing was removing some of the items that had been on there for quite a while, sort of 6 months-ish, and they hadn't had a sale. They hadn't really attracted very much interest. They didn't have watchers, all of that kind of stuff. The sort of judgments that I would make in my business eBay, I just applied it to my personal eBay. So I removed those listings and replaced them with a fresh lot of stuff. And there have been some sales from that, but they're not ones that I've actually processed and kind of included as part of this project yet. So I'm still feeling really positive about doing this. And the feeling when you're kind of getting stuff out of the house, or certainly for me, because the room that I'm sitting in at the moment is basically the junk room, and it really is mainly full of junk. I mean, some of the stuff in here is things that we're keeping, and they've just been moved out of the way because we're doing some decorating downstairs. But the majority of what's in here is junk that it needs to go, because as soon as this room is clear, this is the other incentive, as soon as this room is clear, I can turn it into a really lovely office space, which I cannot wait to do, but we're nowhere near it yet. I think another 6 months at least to get rid of all of this stuff. But yes, the thought of clearing this room, the feeling that I get when stuff goes out the door and it's kind of out of my house, and I've actually got some money back for purchases, and it doesn't feel like buying those things was a complete waste of my money or anything, because obviously I've had use out of these items for a considerable length of time actually with some of them, and then to actually get some of my money back for them is just, it's really great. I love it. I love it. Decluttering. I love it. Decluttering for the win any day of the week. I think it's great. Right, so when it comes to the overpayments, I made 2 very small ones because, like I said, there wasn't very much that was selling, and some of the stuff that did sell was earmarked for something else. So I made, and I can't remember, I have to look down to do this because I've got the printouts of it. I can't remember what order this is in. Why can't I find a date on this anyway? Anyway, I made one overpayment of £12.25, and that reduced the monthly payment by 20p and saved 47 pence in interest over the course of the mortgage. And then I made another small overpayment of £11, which reduced the monthly payment by 17p and saved 44 pence in interest overall. So they're very, very small amounts, which is slightly disappointing considering how much I was kind of getting in previous months. But the feeling of making the overpayment, of going into the app and just paying a little bit of money off, I just get such a buzz from it. I just get such a thrill from doing it. The whole reason for doing this was to make sure that something constructive was done, and something that's actually a really powerful thing was done with this money that's coming in from the decluttering. I did mention in the previous video that the amounts that come in that are less than £10 after I've paid postage and fees and things like that, that I was going to absorb those into my just kind of regular spending, which I have done. And that's been really nice, actually. It's been really nice that I've just had that little bit more wiggle room. There's a few bits and pieces that I needed to get for myself this month, and I was able to get them with that. Just things that cost a few pounds. It might be a couple of packets of seeds for the allotment, or small things like that. But yeah, it was really nice. It was a really lovely balance, actually, to have those little amounts coming in for some tiny treats. The things that were coming in that were, like this, came to £12, £11, so kind of over that £10 mark. It was great to pay those off. That felt fantastic as well. And then it was really good to sell those items that were slightly bigger items, more expensive items, that we knew we wanted the money from those to then put into something else, a house project basically. And so that's been really good. I'm so pleased I'm doing it, and I'm so excited to carry on doing it as well. The fact that the £12 and the £11 hasn't made a huge amount of difference to those monthly payments, like, it just doesn't matter. It hasn't dampened my kind of spirit in terms of carrying on with this. So yeah, really, really pleased to be doing it. Felt fantastic to pay that, what was it, £23 off. Felt amazing, loved it. Definitely going to continue. However, things are potentially going to change with the mortgage really soon. And I spoke last time, I think, about the fact that the fixed rate on the mortgage is up for renewal around February, March time of 2023 of next year. Well, we were informed by our mortgage provider that we could actually make some changes now, come out of the fixed rate, what would it have been, about 3 or 4 months earlier, and refix if we want to before that time. Now, one of the other things that I talked about as well was actually and again, I think I talked about this in the previous video, one of the other things that I spoke about was to almost redo the mortgage from scratch, and actually do more than change just the fixed rate and things like that, but to actually change the length of the term of the mortgage. Because what also came through with this information was a mortgage calculator specifically designed so that you could calculate what your new monthly payments would be with the new interest rate that you would go on to, their various fixed rates that they're doing. If we spread our mortgage over a longer period, so over 10 years, so it's currently, I think, just shy of 5 years, just below 5 years. If we spread that out over 10 years, then that will lower our monthly payments by about 350-ish pounds. Now, in a cost of living crisis and a recession, that is a lot to slash out of your monthly expenses, and that suddenly makes everything really comfortable again. And if you kind of add to that the fact that my online income is growing again, it's still not where I need it to be or where I want it to be, but it is growing and it is moving in the right direction. Suddenly we're looking at, actually in 3 months' time, things are starting to look a lot better again and a lot more comfortable. So the plan is to make that happen, and we've started at the very beginning part of, because there's all the admin, it's all just so much more complicated. I used to just ring up years ago and ask to change the term, and they just changed it, whereas now there's I think they've done the credit checks, but so there's that, and then there's having to upload all sorts of information for them and things like that, and it's just, yeah, not quite what I was expecting, because it had always been so much more straightforward in the past. So yeah, so we're in the process of doing that, of figuring out and finding all the paperwork and things that they need to see and getting that uploaded. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that will go ahead. Now, what does that mean in terms of the project, the decluttering project? It's still going to be pretty much the same. I'm still going to stick to anything that comes in below a tenner, it just gets absorbed into my spending for whatever things I need, things I want, etc. And I should say this when I say things I need and things I want. The vast majority of the stuff being decluttered is actually mine. And also I obviously will put it towards joint things as well, because there's always going to be someone in the comments saying, well, you know, you keep saying that you're going to buy yourself a nice cup of tea, or you're going to buy yourself a hot chocolate, and you're going to do this, you're going to do that. What does your partner think? Does he not get any of it? Well, do you know what, sometimes he doesn't, because it's my jumper that's sold, you know. But that aside, I'm laughing because there will be something. One thing I've realised actually is talking about money, especially talking about money online. I mean, talking about money to people in real life can be its own challenging situation. But when you start talking about money online, oh good God, some people just don't know how to behave. Like, they cannot behave themselves when there's someone talking about money. Anyway, let me get back on track, because it just amuses me, the kind of thing that might come in. I don't even know what I'm saying now, because I've just got the giggles so much. So the setup of anything below £10 absorbed into regular spending, anything over £10 gets paid off the mortgage, that will continue. I think there's one more big item that the money from it is earmarked for something, but that hasn't actually been listed yet anyway. So all of that will continue as before. The only thing that will now change is that when you come to pay off the amount of money that you're paying off, so say it's £20, and you get given that choice of, do you use it to lower the monthly payments, or do you use it to shorten the term? Instead of lowering the monthly payments, because we won't need to worry about that anymore, it will be used to shorten the term again. So yeah, so that is the new plan, or that is the latest update, and I hope it's been really useful or interesting to hear someone talking openly about some financial decisions that they are making. I was really surprised by how many people commented on the previous video about how unusual they found it to find someone who is sort of talking about all of these things at the moment. And I think I forget, because I come from a family and I have friendships where we all talk fairly openly about money. Certainly with family, I'd say 90% of the time, and with friends we don't know the absolute ins and outs of each other's bank accounts, but we really do talk about our financial decisions a lot, and we kind of talk in ballpark figures and things like that. So everyone I know talks about it, and I guess I don't have any real concept of what it's like to be in a relationship or in a family or in friendships where you don't talk about those things. So if me talking about it helps you, then that's absolutely fantastic. So with that being said, that's my slightly garbled update about what is going on, and at some point probably in the next couple of months I will give you a further update once things have been sorted with the mortgage and once I've made a few more overpayments. So thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you again soon.